There we go. We have great work to do here today and an exciting conversation that I'm delighted to bring to you. My notes say that there should have been a video. Is there not? If there is not, I'm going to keep going. Those of you who know me know that you just keep rolling. All right. As the President of Rwanda just mentioned to you, this panel will explore the role of diplomacy in addressing the critical global challenge of food security, recognizing that we are off track for achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. We're off track for achieving the Paris Accord. We know that the primary drivers of particularly acute food insecurity are the climate crisis and conflict. Yet we also know that there are countries that are making significant progress towards developing the food systems transformation that is necessary not only to feed the people in their countries, but to support the agricultural trade system that will ensure our ability to universally provide access to affordable, nutritious food. I am delighted to have three of those leaders here today who will help us by talking about what they are doing in their roles, but more importantly, lessons that they've learned and how we can use their experiences to help guide us towards developing the diplomatic support that is required to support the national challenges that will help us create the ecosystem that we often talk about as so necessary to supporting the sustainable transformation of the food system and building the resiliency of our food system across the globe. So let me start by introducing the panelists, beginning with, to my left, the Honorable Laura Elena Suazo Torres, the Secretary of State for Agriculture and Livestock in the Republic of Honduras. The Secretary of State is currently the President Pro Tem of the Food and Security Plan of the Community of Latin American and Caribbean States. She is also a member of the Board of Directors of Organizations for Agro-Food Development. Please join me in welcoming the Honorable Laura Elena Suazo Torres. Seated beside the Secretary of State for Agriculture is the Honorable Dr. Henry Musa Kpaka, the Minister of Agriculture and Food Security for the Republic of Sierra Leone. Minister Kpaka is the Minister of Agriculture and Food Security for Sierra Leone, spearheading the President's flagship Feed Salon initiative aimed at transforming the country's agricultural sector to achieve food security and drive equitable economic growth. Please join me in welcoming the Minister. And finally, as they always say, last but definitely not least, is the Honorable Dr. Elsie S. Kansa, the Ambassador and Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of the United Republic of Tanzania to the United States of America. Ambassador Kansa is a Tanzanian economist. She has served in various positions in the Ministry of Finance and the Central Bank of Tanzania, including becoming a personal assistant to His Excellency, the former Prime Minister Kikwete of the United Republic of Tanzania, and also served as the Prime Minister's economic advisor. Please join me in welcoming Ambassador Kansa. Let's get right into this because we have as you can tell, a panel that I think you will all be quite delighted to hear from as we move forward. Let's start with you. If you don't mind, if I can say, Secretary of State Torres, I'm going to ask you first, but this is the same question to each of the panelists. How have you worked to strengthen diplomatic ties through collaborations and other initiatives between your country and other countries or organizations to address your specific food security challenges, particularly in the face of climate change, because of the issues that we are all aware of in the region?
Okay. First of all, thank you so much to the organizers of this very, very important event. Congratulations to Dr. Geoffrey and Dr. Gary. And thank you to all of you for being here today, paying attention to this topic after having a good plate of food. That's food security. And we were not worried about what, when, how, who prepared the food, where is the food coming from. We had the food, and that's perfect. And all human beings deserve that. I am Laura Suazo, Secretary of Agriculture and Livestock of Honduras, and talking about diplomacia, or diplomacy. To me, brings to my mind kind of two avenues. The first one is diplomacy of relating well with other people. And that's part of the job of being a minister of agriculture. But it's part of the relationships with farmers, for instance. But on the other hand, is the diplomacy to all the international cooperation and all the relationships with other countries as well, and the decisions that we make together. So to me, the first example that I can share with you right now is that diplomacy and that relationship with farmers, and all kinds of farmers. Just recently, about a year and a half ago, we finished what is called the state policy for the agri-food sector of Honduras. And with the president of Honduras, Xiomara Castro, who happens to be a woman and also be so committed to agri-food sector, we decided to ask all the sectors what were their stage at that time, their situation, and how they were going to be dealing with all the issues that are affecting agriculture at this time. One of those issues is climate change. Well, a lot of answers came, and a lot of contradictions and complaints about the role of government. Our role as ministers, because there are kind of three sectors, the civil society, the private sector, and the government. And sometimes, if we don't work through good relations among the three of us, one will be complaining to the other about who is responsible for food security. I think that by asking them about this information and getting together and surviving the worst moments of disagreements, we came with this state policy that at the end, the responsibility of carrying out it is for everybody. And I think that that's a good example about dealing or addressing climate change, because in that policy, there are all the plans, strategies, and all the projects and programs that we need to strengthen, but at the same time to create new ones. I think that climate change, as I was talking before in another room, is not only an environmental issue, it's a human issue, because we are the ones who make the decisions or take the risk for investments or for the kind of high external input technology that we are using. But at the same time, We are also the recipients of that negative impact. We are doing a lot of projects, techniques, initiatives within Honduras, through the municipalities, through the farmers associations, but also we work together as the Central American region and together with Dominican Republic as well, and also in other kind of settings, all the Latin American and the Caribbean states working together for food security. Just to finish, there are many, many issues and activities that we're carrying out, but there are some of them which are very important, and it is the use of water, soil management, financial, especially climate financial funding, which, by the way, is very hard to get it, and also kind of bioeconomy, circular economy, or bioproduction. I think that we will have time to go into those examples.
Some of those issues, and I really want to underscore and highlight you turning to farmers as the important diplomatic relationship that you see leading through your office. So often we forget about the farmers as a constituent group that require not just support, but also they bring leadership on the change that we're working to achieve. So thank you very much. Let me go to you, Mr. Minister. As the lead for the President's flagship Feed to Leone, can you speak specifically to this question about how you've worked to strengthen the diplomatic ties through collaborations and other initiatives for your country?
Great. Thank you very much, Ambassador. I want to say good afternoon to everybody. Hope the lunch was delicious. I am Dr. Henry Musa Kpaka. It's my first time at the Borlaug dialogue, but it's not the first time for Sierra Leone. Those of you that frequent this event know that the late Dr. Monty Jones, Professor Monty Jones, winner of this prestigious award. Congratulations to the two winners for this year. Is a frequent member here and contributed immensely, not only to Sierra Leone, but to the globe. The varieties of rice that he developed is now in millions of hectares of lands across the country. So big shoes I'm stepping in. Nonetheless, we've been doing quite a lot as well. I think the question around diplomacy and using diplomacy to address food systems challenges, to me, I really see it as, in this context, as a partnership. How do you build the right set of partners to solve the challenges that are both local, but that also spills into international spaces? I think we've had a number of, if you like, watershed moments with the multiple crises where the globe has had to sit down and say, okay, food is systemic, it's not just, and that we're all connected. So in that light, solutions that we come up with, though maybe homegrown, but needs to be shared, it needs to cross boundaries. So on our part, really, the paradoxes that we see where the globe is still produces enough food, but there are certain parts of the world that doesn't get it. Well, on the African continent, we have a very young population, but that is an opportunity, by the way, but they are also the most unemployed. So part of what we're doing in our program is to try to address this. So specifically when it comes to how we produce food for not just for today and not just for our society, but for others. Sierra Leone was among the 150 or so million countries that signed in the Emirati Declaration. That was one, but we took it a step further. I am co-chair of the Alliance of Champions for Food Systems Transformation alongside Brazil, Norway, Rwanda, and Cambodia. And what we really said was, yes, the Emirati Declaration is good, but we want to push the ceiling on those things. We held ourselves to 10 concrete result areas where we would implement specific things and show results. And together with these partners, these countries, we are learning and sharing how you can do this, well, and make sure. And we did it not because it was easy or it would be easy for us. I signed up as a co-chair and co-founding member because it was the right thing to do. We want to make sure we're feeding not only for today but for tomorrow. We want to make sure we're taking care of not just calories but nutrition. Joblessness, we want to address that. And those are some of the core things that we held to. And we want to make those hard trade-offs. And we know it will cost money. And so as part of this alliance, a lot of what we're doing is designing programs in real analytical ways. We've had a number of partners that are supporting us to develop investable programs to really come and do activities in Sierra Leone to show results across what we're saying. Another paradox area that we see, I think when it comes to the continent, there's a lot of opportunities and we have not really sort of tapped into all of it to meet the challenges. Free trade, the movement of goods, food in particular is one area. The Africa Free Trade Continental area, I think is one opportunity where we've got for countries to be able to really make sure that's implemented, make sure that's working for us. At the smaller level, we are part of the ECOWAS Rice Observatory. It's a small group of countries in West Africa that believe we've got the ecology to be able to produce rice. We import quite a lot of rice in that region. And we want to work together to learn across, solve value chain issues, share technologies that work, organize labor properly to be able to address those challenges. So those are some of the things that we are involved in. And that squarely fits in the president's flagship program, Feeds Alone, where it's an engine for economic growth in Sierra Leone. It's one to create jobs. It's one that also builds resilience. And I think it's knowing that you can't do this by yourself, but you're going to need other partners, technical partners, other countries to learn from. And that's why we take and are addressing some of these issues. Private sector is another area where we're building partnerships to be able to address this. We mapped, in 40 years, we hadn't done this, or 70 even, we mapped our swells to really tell us, across the country, National Swell Survey, to tell us the types of ecologies, types of crop that can grow. We partner with OCP Africa to really do fertilizer response trial to inform the kind of nutrients that we can give depending on the ecology and the crop that we're growing. So there are a number of areas where we're building partnership because we think it's important. We think partners in this community where we are, we think private sector, farmer organizations. I think these are all the partnerships that we need to build to address the challenge in face of climate change.
And that is a fundamental point that I'm delighted that you have addressed, and that is the role of partnerships as part of diplomacy, and the recognition that those partnerships are not just domestic but international, and not just in the region but global, in order to support the transformation of the food system. Let me go to Your Excellency, Ambassador Kansa, and let me start by apologizing to you as well as to the audience that I called President Kikwete, the former prime minister. If he were sitting here, I would be in so much trouble right now. But I'm asking all of you, please don't repeat that, okay? Don't even share. So let me start by saying I am so sorry, because he is someone who I have a great deal of respect for. And let me then go directly to the question, because we've heard from West Africa and from Central America on how diplomacy affects the transformation of the food system to address the issues of food security and the sustainable development of our system. As a leader in East Africa, not just in your role here as ambassador, but in your previous roles, working with the president. How have you seen diplomacy play the role to help us achieve the goal that we're discussing here today?
Thank you very much, Ertharin, and allow me to begin by thanking the organizers for inviting the government of the United Republic of Tanzania to participate in this August gathering this year, congratulating the two winners, and also extending the sincere apologies that our Minister for Agriculture, who was supposed to be joining this panel, unfortunately could not arrive on time. And so I will do my best to step into his shoes. So building on the theme of partnership, at the outset, I want to start off by saying that we have deliberately embraced collaboration between the public sector and the private sector, both local and international, to help drive our efforts to attain food self-sufficiency. We currently stand at about 124% food self-sufficiency, and over the past 10 years, we have achieved 100% food self-sufficiency. There are a number of key initiatives that contributed to us attaining this self-sufficient status. One is that in 2008, the government launched a new initiative called Kilimo Kwanza, Agriculture First, and which was an effort to embrace the participation of the private sector in attaining food security. The same year, 2008, we also launched the Agricultural Sector Development Program. It's a 10-year program and essentially encompassing a combination of policy interventions and regulatory interventions as well as investments from the public sector. The second phase was launched in 2018 and is ongoing. Third is we launched flagship initiative focused on the breadbasket region of Tanzania, the Southern Highlands. This particular initiative was titled the Southern Agricultural Growth Corridors of Tanzania, and it was launched in 2010. And it built on Kilimo Kwanza by embracing the international private sector as well as other development partners. Under SAGCOT, the private sector has invested $1.3 billion, and this has complemented the government's investments in important infrastructure such as roads, electricity, communications, and irrigation that amounts to $5 billion. Over 900,000 smallholder farmers have been impacted so far, and we're still going. In addition to these initiatives, Tanzania has been leveraging diplomatic engagements, again, to address specific food security challenges in the country and region. Some examples of how we're doing this. One is taking part in regional initiatives addressing the issue of food security. This includes the African Union's Comprehensive Africa Agriculture Development Program, CAADP, and trade protocols under the East African Community, EAC, and Southern African Development Community, SADC, as well as the African Continental Free Trade Area. These regional and continental protocols and initiatives are necessary for food security as they facilitate food trade. We've also been participating and continue to participate in various bilateral and multilateral programs aimed at bolstering food security. For example, we're part of the USAID's Feed the Future initiative aimed at improving food security, nutrition, and ending global hunger. And just last month, we were selected as one of the 3 pilot countries under the Feed the Future Accelerator program, which seeks to deepen food security efforts and accelerate the objectives of the Feed the Future program. And Ertharin, you happen to be attending the event where they launched the Feed the Future Accelerator program. Thirdly, we partner with regional and international platforms to address the question of food security. For example, we work with AGRA, an African-led, African-based organization seeking to catalyze agriculture transformation in the continent. We're one of AGRA's leading partners in implementing the Food Systems Transformation Agenda, targeting 12 countries in Africa. AGRA is supported by various partners, including USAID, the Gates Foundation, MasterCard Foundation, and Rockefeller Foundation. Last year in September, Tanzania held AGRA's Africa's Food Systems Forum Summit, bringing together stakeholders in the agriculture sector to take action and share lessons that will move Africa forward with respect to meeting its food security objectives. And just over a week ago, Tanzania hosted a regional Poultry Futures Forum. So we're also serious about addressing and boosting food security by also tackling the livestock in the sector as well as fisheries sector. We also leverage international forums like the World Economic Forum. And lastly, we have been establishing special committees and joint permanent commissions to strengthen bilateral agricultural trade with neighboring countries. We have done this with Zambia, Malawi, the DRC, Zimbabwe, and Namibia. Most of these countries have been facing food shortages due to the adverse impact of climate change. For example, as these sisterly countries are faced with food shortages, Tanzania has agreed to supply a total of 650,000 metric tons of maize to Zambia, 500,000 metric tons of maize to DRC, and engagements are ongoing to help Namibia with 400,000 metric tons of maize. We have also agreed with the World Food Programme to supply maize to Malawi under humanitarian grounds.
I get very excited when you say what the numbers that the country is providing to support the food security, not just of your own country, which is at 100%, as you noted for us, but for the continent. Yeah. Because we've heard speakers all morning talk about Africa's ability to feed itself and feed the world. And you're giving us examples of what is not something of the future, but what is happening today. Wow. So congratulations to you and to the country for that for your leadership and for the progress that you've made.
Thank you.
Each of you have given examples of initiatives and policies that support not just your diplomatic efforts externally, but internally towards achieving the goal of food systems transformation. Give the audience one example of a priority policy or initiative that you've implemented and the lessons that you learned in implementing that policy or initiative.
Okay. From the experience in Honduras, I think that one of the most important is to have been able to work in the state policy for the agri-food sector for the next 20 years. And why I say that, because once you become minister, you have not been studied for that previously. You have not inherited all the wisdom that you need to make decisions. So you have to work with all the tools that are just in front of you. And having a state policy is one of the most important contributions, I think, because it organizes the work of the country in all the aspects. Well, because of that, I think that one other situation that happens in this kind of work, or it also happens to me, is that just the first day of my work, I got a lot of let's say congratulations, but at the same time, I get all the agendas of too many organizations, local, national, and international organizations, and every one of them came with their kind of projects and initiatives. But at that time, we didn't have the state policy, and we were not able to accept all the offers because at some point, we were not sure that those were exactly based on the need of farmers. And to me, with all respect, I say that, to me, the better lesson is just go to the people, work with the farmers, work with the people, know their needs, and then get together with all the external and local organizations or efforts, and then work together for solutions. I think that the region, even Honduras, Central America, on all the Latin American and Caribbean countries, all of us, we have amazing experiences and projects. Another aspect that we have is tons, a huge amount of laws, of normative, of plans, strategies, etc. What we need is just prioritize and focus on, in this case, sustainable agriculture, but also food security and nutrition, which is one of the big challenges. In addition to that, I think that one great example right now is the plan of action for food security and nutrition of the CELAC, the Latin American and Caribbean countries together. And in that plan of action that had been created for the last 5 years or more with the inputs of all the countries, we have like the objectives, we have goals, etc., and they are very organized or integrated with the Sustainable Development Goals, and they pay attention to zero hunger and eradicate poverty. So right now, each country, each Minister of Agriculture at each country is just reviewing what they have in their own country, and at the same time, planning for those who are not doing anything on that. But we are getting together, and right now we are having like an X-rays for what have been done. And we found out amazing experience in Dominican Republic, in Brazil, Colombia, Mexico, and then we asked ourselves, so why is that it's taking so long for us to come out of food insecurity?
And there's so much happening in each of these countries. That is absolutely fantastic to hear you talk about how you work to hear from the different countries and their priorities so you can learn from one another. That is a really good lesson for this audience to hear. Minister, let me go to you next, if I may, to specifically answer the same question, because you talked about some very significant initiatives that you've begun in the country. Give us an example of one that has been quite successful and the lessons that you learned to achieve that success.
Okay, great, thank you. Before I do that, I really do want to also congratulate what they're doing in Tanzania. I think it's wonderful. It's a good example that if you stay focused and determined, you can achieve this. And Africa, we need these examples. It's the type of policies that we're also pushing. I lived in Tanzania, and some of those areas that you're pointing are so productive, and the country is translating that into real results, and we're very happy for you. Also want to point out with AGRA, we're great, having great partnership with them. The forum that they just had in Rwanda, fantastic opportunity to also raise funds for some of the projects that we're doing. The deal room, it's one of its kind. We had great success there, building technical partnerships and money as well. To your question, so one policy area, and we're still working on this, I wouldn't call it success yet, but there's a lot to learn about it. And it really gets to the part about why sometimes it can be hard when you're starting from a low place. We produce rice in Sierra Leone. We're about 65, on a good year, maybe 70% rice self-sufficient, which is the main staple. And I think we're really pushing to be able to make sure we hit that 100% mark. We spend over $200 million a year on that, just importing rice. But with the rice we produce now, it's more expensive than rice that is produced across the globe, transported and come to Sierra Leone. Reason being, fine, our yields are still low. Competitiveness is a problem because infrastructure and all of that. A policy we passed, when we talk to people that want to come and invest, they say, you've got to have policies that make it profitable for us to come and grow rice and sell in your country and elsewhere. I passed the policy, first thing, because this was priority number one, to the current rice importers to tell them, you've got to participate in the rice value chain or you will lose your import license. Obviously for them, these are 5-6 guys in the country. One of them can import about 60% of the rice that we consume. They go to the presidents. We all agree we've worked very hard and designed this thing, but turning that now into actual implementation. And we left it very flexible to say participate, what that actually means. Obviously, for them, if you can sit on your cell phone, order rice, sell it the next day, it's easy, versus going to now get land and plow it and grow the rice and all that stuff. But we said, okay, but you could bag rice, you could mill rice, you could market rice, local rice. All we want is for you to mimic the quality that rice that you import with local rice that's produced here. You know, so we've signed MOUs with them, but actually getting that done. Part of it is because we stopped short at getting their license because rice is our staple food. If you get the license, the price is gonna go up. And then people are gonna get in the street. It's the time they're having all this protest in Kenya. We're like, we can't call the shots on this thing because people are gonna get out there and riot. It's their staple. So it really points to, can we? And I think part of it is the bluntness of the policy tool that we used at the time. We did that because at the time we didn't have any import duties on rice that came into the country. Now that's been introduced. So we're tweaking this policy to say, fine, you can have your license, but you have to pay 10% import duty. But if you participate, you don't pay that. And I think we're really hopeful, they're really happy about that, that now we can finally get people coming in and participating. But it really speaks to how difficult it is to make hard choices when it comes to food, when you have cities that want to get cheap food that come from overseas, but the benefits that come from local production, you have to go through these hard hurdles, and that's where we are.
And that is probably a difficult lesson that I think I watched the other panelists nod. Making those hard choices when there are actors who have been in place a lot longer than you have been in post as a leader, but having the courage to do what is right for the long-term viability of the food system in your country. Same question over to you, Ambassador. We've applauded your success. Success doesn't come easy. Can you give us an example of a policy or an initiative that required diplomacy to support the food systems transformation and the lessons that you learned, that your country learned?
Sure. So let me pick up on the point that you discerned about Tanzania positioning itself as a regional food hub. And that comes with an ambitious target that we wish to achieve agricultural commodity exports worth $6 billion by 2030. Last year we hit 2.3 billion. As you're aware, for us to be able to grow our production and our exports, we have to spend money. And over the past 3 years, the Tanzania government has quadrupled the budget that's been allocated to agriculture. Bearing in mind the changes that climate change, or the challenges that it has brought upon us, about 1/3 of that budget allocation has been channeled towards irrigation, the other towards storage and warehousing, because we still face challenges with post-harvest losses. But more importantly, a theme that has occurred earlier is about the need to invest in research and development. And in that respect, we have to address the issue of productivity, because we will be producing more, but our farmers remain impoverished because productivity is low. And so part of the investments by the government, in collaboration with partners, so development partners like the American government, but we also work with the private sector, NGOs, research institutions that have helped us to come up with new seed varieties that have helped us to boost yields and also to increase drought resistance. Just a couple of examples, if I may, and I'll stop there. We have a new seed called Record for sunflower. We have T105, Situka, and Staha for maize. We have Makia for sorghum. We have TXD 306 for rice. Many others for pulses. We lead in pulses production in Africa, as well as Tenera for palm oil.
So in addition to those really important examples that you've just given, I want to appreciate you bringing in the issue of finance and the government's increase in finance for agriculture, recognizing that diplomacy and plans and initiatives without adequate finance will not achieve the food security goals that we all agree we must achieve. We have few seconds left. I'm going to ask each of you to give me a call to action in one sentence so that the organizers will not pull us off the stage, that helps the audience to foster, to understand what we need to build diplomacy to support food security and a more sustainable food system. One sentence. What is your call to action?
Okay, it's a long sentence. Okay, actually, I think that the call of action would be to put farmers first. Its reality, its culture, its context, its climate change situation, and narrow the gap that exists between the farmers and the technology that climate finance.
I'm going to stop you. One sentence, Mr. Minister.
The challenges we face are complex, but we can address them. We must do them together, building the right partnerships across the sort of problem areas, technology, finance, and markets.
One sentence, Madam Ambassador.
We must invest in youth participation in agriculture, and this calls for doing things differently, and in particular addressing digitalization of farmers in rural areas. And I thank MasterCard and the African Development Bank for their mobilizing digital access, targeting millions of smallholder farmers in Africa, as well as the Mission 300 electrification drive. This is not digital without electricity.
There we
Also
go.
being spearheaded
And with
by
that,
FDB.
Madam Ambassador, Mr. Minister, Madam Secretary, farmers, partnership, youth, we have a call to action that we can achieve using diplomacy to achieve the goal of the sustainable transformation of the food system. Thank you for your participation here today.
Welcome.